Welcome to A Dram of Outlander. This is Desiree, your podcaster and the writer for adramofoutlander.com. For all things Outlander, from the Diana Gabaldon book series to the Starz TV series and everything in between. This is episode 99, Outlander Season 3, Voyager Preparation, Part 3. Hello there. We are mere days from Season 3 of the TV show premiering. I can't wait, and I'm really excited, though I didn't plan for it, that the next episode will be 100. Woo! And it will coincide with the Season 3 premiere. That is pretty cool in my book. So, we're going over just a quick overview of the entire Voyager book, and the point we're at right now is where Jamie and Claire are heading to Jamaica. They got a lead on Ian from the accidental slave purchase of Ishmael, and they also have Temeraire, who is on the ship with them. So they're heading to Jamaica. And we find out that the marking on these freed slaves is from a Mrs. Abernathy of Rose Hall. I wonder who that could be. So, as Ishmael is leaving, he wants to take Temeraire with him. And if you remember, they disappear together into the jungle. But is this the last we're going to see of Ishmael? I don't think so. So they take the Artemis and it goes around the island to Kingston Harbor. But guess what they see there? It's that dang English warship, the Porpoise, that they have been trying to get away from. It's like it's following them everywhere. However, the new governor was on the Porpoise. And Claire got to meet him, but she really has no idea who he is. Something interesting is coming our way. When they see the Porpoise, Jamie is feeling personally persecuted and that boat is pursuing him. But Claire explains about the new governor to Jamie, and it helps Jamie's attitude. But when she tells him the name, Jamie seems surprised at first, then happy. Lord John Grey is a friend of his, he says, and he might be able to help locate Ian. And Jamie decides that they're going to dress up and go to the governor's ball, which sort of surprises Claire. She thinks they should go directly to Rose Hall to see if young Ian is there. But Jamie thinks having a friend in high places is more important. So Fergus is getting rid of the cargo, the bat guano, and Claire, along with Jamie, go to Jared's plantation, which is called Blue Mountain House. So the overseer and his wife, the McIvers, take care of Jamie and Claire and help them prepare. Mr. Willoughby also goes along to the governor's reception. Jamie thinks he could be a good distraction because he is a small Chinese man. Many of these people may have never met someone from China before. So Jamie has heels on, a wig. He's in this full splendor and with a powdered face, and he's going by M. Alexandre de Provac. He's playing the part of a French immigrant from Martinique. How many French immigrants from Martinique are, I don't know, about 6'8" with heels on and have a Scottish French accent? Not many, I don't think. Claire runs into none other than the Reverend Campbell. Remember, he was sailing for the West Indies with his ill sister to take up a mission there for the church. He is really disapproving of the different things that are going on at this party. But he says he has come to find information out because his sister Margaret has disappeared and he wants help. So as the evening rolls on, it seems like it's going very well, and Mr. Willoughby is charming the ladies. Claire is introduced all over the place, and she's learning the social structure of the island and who's who and making connections. Jamie, at some point, discreetly goes into the governor's office with Lord John. Claire tries to follow him, but the crowd keeps her from going immediately. And she catches up a few minutes later, and what she sees shocks her, because she knows that Lord John was the governor of Ardsmuir, and he was overseeing Jamie's life as a prisoner. And she finds them in that embrace, and it mortifies her. And here's a quote from the book. The governor's shock at learning that I saw Jamie's wife was now at least partially explained. That one glimpse of unguarded, painful yearning had told me exactly how matters stood on his side. Jamie was another question altogether. He was the governor of Ardsmuir prison, he had said casually, and less casually on another occasion. Do you ken what men in prison do? I did know. But I would have sworn on Brianna's head that Jamie couldn't under any circumstances whatever. At least I would have sworn that before tonight. I closed my eyes, chest heaving, and tried not to think of what I had seen. So this is sort of Claire's MO, right? She'll jump to conclusion before getting all the answers. So her immediate jump was filling in the blanks of what Jamie had explained about being in prison to her, and that sometimes men who would never be attracted to another man would, in those circumstances, attend to another man in prison or be attended to. So Claire is freaking out and she must steal herself away for a bit. And she goes back through the crowd and she's heading to the ladies' retiring rooms. Like now we would be restrooms where there was a chaise lounge or other chairs in there to sit and kick off your shoes and also go to the bathroom. So I'm assuming it's sort of like a privy with a seating area. Not much different than what we have, except, of course, no flush toilets, right? But she goes in there, and fairly quickly she realizes something is terrifically amiss, and she notices the smell of blood. And the young widow who was flirting with everybody at the party, but the one that the Reverend Campbell was completely offended by, is the one who is found dead on the floor. And there are bloody footprints. And they're Willoughby's footprints. Yi Chen Cho. So the reception is a disaster at this point. Soldiers are sent in pursuit of Mr. Willoughby. The militia is brought on board. Every guest is questioned, particularly M. Alexandre de Provac, who appeared to be a close associate of the murderer, the presumed murderer. So Claire is left alone in the governor's office after her own questioning, and she's greatly disturbed and not particularly happy to be joined by Lord John himself, the governor. He had discovered the fan that Claire had dropped in the hall, and he realizes she must have seen the embrace between himself and Jamie. He doesn't make any pretenses, But in the ensuing discussion, Claire learns what lies on Jamie's side of the relationship and exactly why Jamie insisted on coming first to see the governor. Jamie hasn't told her one other secret, a very big secret. And John exposes the secret. Here's how it went. It was a portrait, an oval miniature set in a carved frame of some fine-grained dark wood. I looked at the face and sat down abruptly, my knees gone to water. I was only dimly aware of Gray's face floating above the desk like a cloud on the horizon as I picked up the miniature to look at it more closely. He might have been Bree's brother was my first thought. The second, coming with the force of a blow to the solar plexus, was, my God in heaven, he is Bree's brother. My God in heaven, he is Bree's brother. Well, William is the cat being let out of the bag. So she and John have a terse conversation, and she learns that Jamie has an illegitimate son, that he has an intimate history with John Gray, and the fact that she feels an altogether unwilling sympathy with Gray. Both John and Claire love Jamie. Both have, in a way, given him a child, and each of them is slightly jealous of the other. I understand why Jamie hasn't told Claire certain things, but I think there's been time. I mean, yes, they were separated for a while when she got stolen onto the Porpoise, but his keeping key information away from her is pretty rough. And especially knowing that without adequate information, she will fill in the gaps herself. And it's not a good thing always. She's not great at sitting back and looking at all the information first. She tends to jump in and come to a conclusion whether or not it's real. So I think Jamie's big mistake was not telling her about Leary first, of course. Prepping her. And then not telling her about Willie all these months in. Ugh, it is tough. I could see her being angry and jealous. So it's now nearing morning, and Jamie returns and takes her home to the Blue Mountain house. They're close together, exhausted and shocked by the events that happened that night, and they have an intimate talk. Jamie confesses to Claire the fact of Willie's existence, showing her a miniature of the boy, the twin of the one John Gray had shown her. So she didn't have to bring it up. He brought it up first. And here's what he says. I was afraid to tell you, for fear you would think that perhaps I'd gone about spawning a dozen bastards, for fear you'd think that I would not care for Brianna so much if you kept I had another child. I was afraid to tell you, for fear you would think that perhaps I'd gone about spawning a dozen bastards, for fear you'd think that I wouldn't care for Brianna so much if you kent I had another child. But I do, Claire, a great deal more than I can tell you. Will you forgive me? Geneva, Willie's mother, she wanted my body. Leary needed my name, and the work of my hands to keep her and her bairns. John, well, I couldn't give him what he wanted, and he is friend enough not to ask it. But how shall I tell you all these things, and then say to you, it is only you I have ever loved? How should you believe me? And that question stayed in the air between them. And all she could say was, I'll believe you if you say it. She presses her wrist against his, pulse to pulse, heartbeat to heartbeat. Blood of my blood, she whispered, bone of my bone. he whispered back. I give you my spirit till our life shall be done, but it isn't done yet, Jamie, is it? He gets up at this point and he takes the shift from her, and she lays back on the narrow bed naked. She pulls him down through the soft yellow light and took him home and home and home again. And we were neither one of us alone. That is one of my favorite moments and passages, because now the air is clear between them. Leary thought she loved him. She thought she wanted him her whole life. And she got him and didn't know what to do with him. Geneva used her power and control because she wanted his body instead of giving up her virginity to an old man. And John could never have what he wanted of Jamie. And I still think that John is using his connection with Jamie, that desire, that forbidden love, that unrequited love, to keep him at a distance from others, to keep him unable to find the relationship that he might be able to find wholeness in. And yes, I know times were different and they had to be hidden, but it was also fairly common for bachelor men to share a home, or bachelor women to share a home. Bachelor women. Unmarried women. I guess they would have called them spinsters back then. But to share a home together. I've known a good many lady roommates in my years that I'm fairly certain were in committed, loving relationships, but they always rented a 2-bedroom place. They never appeared that way because it wasn't acceptable until very recently, even in our culture. So it would have been possible. But John did not want to let go of something that he couldn't have, and it kept him from, I think, growing and maturing in that area. But he's doing a great thing for Jamie and being the guardian and stepfather of Jamie's illegitimate son, of a son he can never claim. So Jamie and Claire have come back together and they are on the same page again. And they decide it's time to search Rose Hall for young Ian. And they go to the remote plantation and they sit down and wait for Mrs. Abernathy. And when she comes out, it's none other than Galis Duncan. I took a deep breath and got my voice back. I trust you won't take this the wrong way. But why aren't you dead? Claire says to Galis. And Galis laughs. Think I should have been, do you? Well, you're no first, and I dare say you'll no be the last to think so either. Galis explains how she escaped from burning. It's because she was pregnant, and after she delivers the baby, another corpse, roughly of the same size, an old granny, was burned instead of Galis. Dougal Mackenzie was blackmailed by her, and she threatened to kill the child, so he helped her escape by force. And Galis herself had escaped to France. Remember? There's a woman in France who helps women with herbs and information, the ladies of the upper class. Aha. So Claire and Galis are terrifically wary of one another, even though they were friends at one point. I'd say a frenemy. Can anybody really be friends with Galis Duncan? I mean, she's one of the bad girls of Outlander series. She's a murderer without any question. To her, ends justify the means. She has a focused point, and this is what she's going to do. But they still share the commonality of being a traveler through the stones. And that's hard to shake when you have that sort of similarity with somebody else, and there's very few others who do. So they talk, and Geillis wants to know about Claire's experience because now she's traveled the stones 3 times, and that seems pretty unprecedented to Geillis. Geillis only went once. And she's been in the 18th century for a long time. So Claire gives some vague answers, and Geillis reveals results of her own research, and she thinks that travel through the stones can be controlled by using gemstones of varying flawlessness and blood. Remember, Geillis murdered her first husband, Greg Edgars, and the second, Arthur Duncan. This is kind of a historical motivation and MO for her. And she also poisoned her current husband, where she got the plantation from. So Claire sees the box of gems that Geillis shows off. It's the same box from the Seal Island. It's the same box that the Murrays / Frasers had been taking gems out of and using for money for whatever purpose it needed to be done for. So likely young Ian is here on the estate somewhere because Geillis is the one who paid for the Bruja to go and retrieve that box. Unfortunately, young Ian happened to be on the island at the same time. So she says young Ian isn't there and has no knowledge of him. She's obviously lying. And she tells them that she has another appointment. So they have to go now. Turns out that visitor is Archibald Campbell. What in the world is he doing there? And after they're on the road away from Rose Hall, they realize that Geillis has stolen one of the pictures of Brianna. Now this can't be for anything good. It has to be being used in one of the rituals. So she has some kind of no good intentions. So Jamie thinks, because of what he saw on the property, that young Ian is being hidden in a cellar beneath the sugar refinery on the estate. And he puts some plans in place for the rescue. So it takes a few days to get everything together, and Jamie, Claire, and a bunch of the Scottish smugglers quietly sail up the Yallis River toward Rose Hall. And the little ship was provided by Lord John Grey himself. They get there at night, and they plan on getting ashore, attack the refinery, and get young Ian, and liberating any other Scottish boys in the process. Claire's left near the boat, armed with a pistol, and with strict instructions to stay put and wait for them. Has Claire ever once stayed put when Jamie has given her strict instructions? No, not ever, not once. But yet he thinks if he keeps telling her that, she'll listen. I mean, I know things happen and that's why she doesn't listen, but still. I don't think she should be left alone. After Jamie leaves, Claire sees a tall, thin shadow in the window of Rose Hall. And she doesn't think it can be Geillis, but it might be young Ian. The men are too far away, so Claire decides to go see for herself. She creeps up, and though she's hoping it's young Ian, she discovers it's Reverend Campbell. Geillis is nowhere to be found, and the Reverend complains that she's disappeared, leaving him all alone in the house. There's a horrible confrontation between Claire and the Reverend, And Claire learns that Reverend Campbell is sure that Jamie was the soldier responsible for his sister's traumatic events that made her become mentally ill and have a breakdown. But it wasn't. He wasn't the Heeland man. It was Ewan Cameron, Margaret's lover, who was a friend of Jamie's. But the Reverend is adamant and he wants to pursue Jamie. And further, Galis Duncan had been writing back and forth with the Reverend as a scholar of Celtic prophecies, and she finds out about the Fraser prophecy. Now remember that is key. That is something that will come back as a thread in the stories way down the line. But if you're reading the books, there you go. Now I wonder in the TV show how they're going to do all of this at Rose Hall. I mean, we have like zombies and zombie powder. Ooh, are they going to do the worm in the guy's eye? Ooh. I know that Outlander medicine, Karen Doherty would love for them to do the worm in the eye thing. What about the scene that's coming up with the big beast and then the wearing of the head and the whole Margaret being filled with a spirit and giving prophecy and talking? That whole thing. Eek. And I wonder how Galis will be aged. I mean, Lottie Verbeek is gorgeous. So it'll be interesting to see if they plump her up a little bit and rough her up and make her look like she has advanced syphilitic disease. I don't know. Just saying. Ooh. And will Archibald Campbell be creepy, or will he play like totally straight and awesome until he's not and we find out what he's really about? So this Fraser prophecy is a prediction left by the Bronze Seer. And basically it says that the last of Lovett's line will one day lead Scotland. Well, currently, that's Brianna. She's the last in the line in modern day. However, in the 18th century, it's William, even though he's illegitimate. So what? So was Jamie's dad, but he was still Lovett, right? Or, could it be one of Fergus's children? Because even though he's not a blood relative, Jamie adopted him and gave him the name. We will see. That we don't have an answer to yet. Even into book 8, we don't have the answer to that yet. So Galis Duncan is still obsessed with the rulers of Scotland. And Galis has a picture of Brianna. She knows that she exists in the 20th century. What in the heck does she have in mind is the question. So Lovett's line consists of the descendants of Simon Lord Lovett, chief of Clan Fraser, and he was executed following the rising. He left a number of children, but the direct line died out in the 1800s. But there we have Brianna, who would have been born in the 1800s. So could it be one of her children? Maybe one of her kids will become the prime minister. I don't know. What do you think? So Claire really figures out that Galis is probably going to use that photograph as an anchor point to travel through the stones, and that she's planning on going back to the future. So when Claire was at Father Fogden's, remember Lawrence was telling her about all the caves and the one at Abendawe? That's going to come back here because that spiritual cave is of importance. So Mr. Willoughby unexpectedly shows up. He'd been hiding in the jungle. He'd never been found. And he was there to confront the Reverend because he figures something out. And he says, "Most holy fella, And this scares the Reverend. And he turns around and knocks over flowers onto the floor. And the water runs over the papers. And he tries to shake them off. And he yells at Willoughby, "See what you've done, you wicked murdering heathen." And Willoughby laughs in a menacing and low way. "I murdering? Not me, holy fella, is you murderer." And Campbell tries to get rid of him. And Willoughby continues that he saw the Reverend kill the woman. And he saw him with stinking whores in Scotland. And he says, "You kill pretty often, holy fella, I think." Yeah, he did. He killed pretty often. So he was the one who was the fiend murdering women. And then he murdered the woman at the reception as well and pinned it on Willoughby. So Willoughby kills the Reverend. And Yo Chen Cho disappears into the Caribbean night. And Claire doesn't want to stay there with Campbell's body, so she goes upstairs to Gaelus's workroom, and she's looking for clues as for her whereabouts or Ian's. But what she finds is terrible. The photograph of Brianna is in the center of a charred pentacle. What is she planning on doing exactly? This worries Claire greatly. So Claire leaves Rose Hall, and she needs to find Jamie. So she stumbles back through the darkness outside, and she returns to the shore, hoping Jamie and the men are near the boat. Instead, she meets something else, a giant crocodile. Several slaves rescue her, and they kill the beast. It turns out the leader of these slaves is Ishmael, the man rescued from the Bruja, the slave kidnapped from Rose Hall, evidently by the pirates. So she figures out the connection between the Bruja and Rose Hall is the pirate captain had retrieved and delivered the seal's treasure for Gaelus along with a bunch of young Scottish boys. And she wasn't sure if they had agreed upon it ahead of time or by price that the Bruja had taken Ishmael, her cook, as the ship departed. But why would he come back? Well, he's sort of a big voodoo priest, and Claire is half fainting, and when she wakes, she sees that there's going to be this big voodoo ceremony ritual going on, and the oracle is none other than Margaret Campbell. She seems a fine vessel to be talking to the spirit. So Ishmael came back to retrieve his oracle, and it gives him power over the slaves. So Claire is sitting right next to Margaret Campbell in front of all these people in this little clearing, and she hears the Loas, the spirits of the dead. They're the avatars of voodoo deities speaking through the lips of this young Scottish woman. Well, she's not really young anymore, is she? So one of the Loas that is summoned is Boassa. He's a famous maroon. He raised a slave rebellion and died for it. He was tortured to death. And Ishmael is seeking the Loa's blessing on some enterprise that he wants to do, and Boassa grants it with a laugh. Her mouth closed and her eyes resumed their vacant stare, but the men weren't noticing. An excited chatter erupted from them to be hushed by Ishmael with a significant glance at me. Abruptly quiet, they moved away, still muttering, glancing at me as they went. Ishmael closed his eyes as the last man left the clearing, and his shoulders sagged. I felt a trifle drained myself. What? She started to say and stopped. Across the fire, a man had stepped from the shelter of the sugarcane. Jamie, tall as the cane itself, with the dying fire staining shirt and face as red as his hair. He raised a finger to his lips, and I nodded. I gathered my feet cautiously beneath me, picking up my stained skirt in one hand. I could be up past the fire and into the cane with him before Ishmael could reach me. But Margaret? I hesitated, turned to look at her, and saw that her face had come alive once again. It was lifted, eager, lips parted and shining eyes narrowed so that they seemed slightly slanted as she stared across the fire. "Daddy?" said Bree's voice beside me. This completely shocked and drew Claire and Jamie's attention as they listened to the voice of their daughter speaking through Margaret Campbell's blood-smeared lips. "Don't let Mama go alone. Go with her." But they don't know what that means. And the Loa vanished. Ishmael sends Margaret away in the care of his women and tells Jamie and Claire to leave themselves at once. And Jamie informs him that they are going nowhere without young Ian. And Ishmael says to them, "You forget that boy. He be gone." Jamie wants to know where. And Ishmael says he's gone with the maggot mon. And where she go, you done be goin'. That boy gone, mon. You leave too, you a wise man. So, the maggot is Mrs. Abernathy. And Ishmael reluctantly says that they have gone to Abendawe, a name that Claire recognizes. It's that secret cave on Hispaniola. It's that magic place. And he says not to do the magic that the maggot do, that it will kill her and kill you too. And he said, "You hear Buwasa speak. He say the maggot die 3 days. She's taken the boy, he die. You go follow them, man, you die too, sure." Okay, like they're not going to go after young Ian to the cave. So of course, they go to Abendawe and hope it's not too late. At least that's their plan. As Jamie turns, they see that Rose Hall was on fire. The slaves are in their uprising. They have to hurry, or they're going to get caught up in it too. They sail down river with their helpers, and they take the trip to Hispaniola. They leave the confusion of Jamaica. Manhunts and slave risings are behind them. I believe they take Lord John's... Do they take Lord John's ship? I have to look that up. Anyway, they arrive on Hispaniola with Lawrence Stern and the smugglers. And Stern is their guide to the hidden cave of Abendawe. And they leave the others to sail a little bit away so they don't attract any attention. Claire can hear and feel the stones that are on the inside of the cave. And she has a vision of Galus. And so she's pretty sure that Galus knows that she's there as well. Now they make Stern stay outside and guard the cave, and they go in. This is very difficult for Claire to go through. The cave is hard to navigate, and the sensations she's feeling is challenging her. They do get there in time. Ian is still alive, but Galus is in the act of completing her preparations, and all the gemstones are laid out in a pentagram of protection. There's diamond dust that are joining the points of her pentacle, and Ian is bound and gagged. He's ready to be sacrificed. They fight with Galus. It isn't pretty. She has a pistol and she's holding them at bay. Jamie lunges at her. She fires. And Jamie drops. Now, Claire doesn't care about self-preservation at this point. She picks up the ceremonial axe Galus brought with her for the sacrifice and connects. The shock of it echoed up my arm, and I let go, my fingers numbed. I stood quite still, not even moving when she staggered toward me. Blood in firelight is black, not red. She took one blind step forward and fell, all her muscles gone limp, making no attempt to save herself. The last time I saw her face was her eyes. Set wide, beautiful as gemstones, a green water clear, and faceted with the knowledge of death. Okay, so let's stop for just a moment. Do you remember dem bones that Joe Abernathy punked Claire with that were from the history department, the anthropology department, of a woman, a white woman, found in a cave in the West Indies and on Hispaniola? It was Galus Duncan, Galus Abernathy. Claire had killed Galus. And before she came back to this time, she had met her bones. And she knew, without knowing it was Galus and what would happen in the future, in the past, she knew that the woman had died from trauma. And she wasn't expecting to die. So there ties up one thread. We know exactly who those bones are. Jamie isn't dead, he's injured. He's able to walk, and they make their way out of the cave with young Ian. And Lawrence Stern is outside. He helps them through the jungles toward the beach where they rendezvous back with their friends. Ian tells them about his experience as he can. Galus Duncan had been hunting a mythical stone that grows in the innards of a boy. The boy had to be a virgin, unsullied by carnal touch. So Ian didn't qualify for that. He lost his virginity in Edinburgh after he thought he killed the one-eyed, ponytailed man that had saved his life. But Galus had still taken him to bed, forced him. And then she was going to use him as her protection for travel through the stones. When they get back to the beach, though, the Frasers not only found their friends, but the slaves that were rebelling had swarmed aboard the Bruja, taking it for their escape. But when reaching the open sea, the Porpoise pursued them. And so the Bruja ran aground again, and the man-of-war was shelling the wreck and its fugitives. They were blowing people up on the shore. So this is all going on, and it's a little distance from where Claire and Jamie, young Ian, and Lawrence are supposed to be meeting up with the ship, but they can't escape without being seen by the Porpoise. So they're hoping to run for it. And when they are trying to escape, the Bruja has completely been destroyed, and the man-of-war is seeking other prey. So the smaller boat is more agile and manages to stay ahead of the Porpoise for quite a while, but they can't outrun the man-of-war altogether. And bad weather is coming. Very bad weather is coming. And in the storm, the Porpoise loses her topmast, and she's dragged down with the loss of all hands on deck. Now, the smaller boat that Claire and Jamie and everybody else is on does not escape without damage, and she limps along. And in this process, Claire is knocked on the head by something falling off the ship and thrown overboard. She's unconscious. And she wakes up choking and gagging with Jamie supporting her, clinging to a bit of drifting spar. So she is in and out of consciousness and injured. She doesn't have any idea where they are and has no means of saving herself. But Jamie has his hands gripped upon her. The wave subsided and the wood rose slightly, bringing my nose above water. I breathed and my vision cleared slightly. A foot away was the face of Jamie Fraser, hair plastered to his head, wet features contorted against the spray. "Hold on," he roared. "Hold on, God damn you!" I smiled gently, barely hearing him. The sense of great peace was lifting me, carrying me beyond the noise and chaos. There was no more pain. Nothing mattered, and another wave washed over me, and this time I forgot to hold my breath. The choking sensation roused me briefly, long enough to see the flash of terror in Jamie's eyes. Then my vision went dark again. "Damn you, Sassenach!" His voice said from a great distance. His voice was choked with passion. "Damn you! I swear if you die on me, I'll kill you!" Oh, the things we say when we're worried. This is going to be a great scene. I cannot wait to see those ships and the storms that they're able to create on screen. And wow, I'm so looking forward to this. And Claire wakes up thinking that she's dead and quickly realizes she's not. She's in a white room filled with light and she finds Jamie by her side. So this mirrors in a small way Jamie in the very beginning of the book waking up dead. And Claire herself, after this experience, wakes up believing she's dead also. They were washed ashore. They were found and rescued and taken to a nearby house and cared for, but they have no idea where they are. Their hostess is Mrs. Olivier. She's an Englishwoman married to a Frenchman. They're on a plantation called Les Perles. But where are they? Are they in Martinique? They have no idea how far they drifted in that storm. How off course they were when the Porpoise was pursuing them. St. Thomas? Eleuthera? They don't know where they are. So their hostess is really not good at telling them where they are. Until finally she discloses they're not on an island at all. They're on the mainland in the colony of Georgia. Georgia? America? They had blown at least 600 miles by the storm. They're in the New World. Freedom. Refuge, Claire thinks. Wow. America. So Jamie probably wouldn't have survived transport, but he barely survived the trip to the West Indies and all the things, and now they end up in America before the revolution. And Jamie's trying to figure out what his name is, what's safest. How can I be away from the crown, right? I mean, he was escaping all that disaster when they were looking for young Ian. But after hearing that they're in America, Jamie straightens his shoulders and he smiles back at Mrs. Olivier. And he says, "In that case, Mum, my name is Jamie Fraser." He looks at Claire, his eyes blue and brilliant as the sky behind him, and his heart beats strong in the palm of Claire's hand. And he says, "And this is Claire, my wife." And those are the closing lines to Voyager. So thrilling. And we also learn that Claire has broken her leg when she was thrown overboard and caught up. So she has to recover from that. And Jamie is looking toward the future. They have freedom. They're safe. Yes, it's the colonies, but do you think people from Scotland or England are going to be after him here? Well, he's hoping not. that he'll be able to find a way. And he has family in the colonies. Some of the Camerons escaped over when Culloden was lost. So I'm so excited about season 3. All the clips have been amazing. And one of them that came out yesterday was showing Claire's story, and it really showed a lot of her and Frank and what she was experiencing, the misogyny and those roles that were so hard, and Frank struggling with how his wife was because she didn't just play along. She wasn't a good faculty wife. And she went to medical school. She decided it was time, and she wanted to break those boundaries. And we see how she meets Joe Abernathy, and that they become friends, and they both have so much against them. He is a black man going to medical school, and she is a woman who's also a wife and a mother. So she was like blowing up all these stereotypes and roles. And so was Joe. And we see some of that struggle between her and Frank. And they also showed a scene where they were getting frisky. And I'm pretty sure that that's the nursery scene when Brianna's a baby. We'll see how that plays out. It's pretty graphic in the books. And I know everyone's going to freak out because Claire and Frank actually have a life. Well, they were together for 20 years. Not traditional marriage, not traditional relationship as it turns out. And we don't know the mystery of Frank. We just don't. We don't know if he really cheated or not. But if he did, I don't blame him really, even though I loathe cheaters, because Claire was never his. She never truly returned to him. Her heart was always with Jamie. Always. Even though she didn't talk about him, even though she didn't pursue looking for him in the past, he was always right there by her side in her heart and mind. She called out for him in her sleep. I can't imagine what that felt like for Frank. But they raised a daughter together, and they did create a life. There's a lot to be said for that. I really, really want to know more about Frank Randall. And I hope we get to see a little bit more behind the curtain on screen, because we can, because it's not just Claire's point of view. It'll be fascinating. And Tobias Menzies is amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing Leary and her flipping out and shooting Jamie. That is going to be like awesome on screen. We know that's got to be there. And Fergus and Marsali duping everybody and getting married, meeting the old pothead drunk, Father Fogden, and the fantastic Lawrence Stern, who we even heard about in the Lord John books and other places. I know none of us are looking forward to, well, maybe not, some of us are. I shouldn't assume. Geneva Dunsany. I still cannot get over the fact how so many fans defend her blackmailing and coercing Jamie to have sex. I mean, that's rape. And she not only blackmailed him and coerced him to deflower her, she used her absolute position of power. And I don't think it's any excuse that because she was from the upper class, she was used to getting her way. That's just abusing your power and privilege. And if the roles were reversed and there was a 17-year-old upper crusty boy, young man, who was set to get married and he didn't want to, and he blackmailed and coerced a female servant, that would be viewed as rape. So rape is rape is rape. And I do blame her. And I do wonder, as I've said way back in the read-along, if she had come to him and said, this is my circumstance, if she would appeal to his heart, if she would have told him what was going on and why she didn't want to give her virginity to a man she didn't want to marry, would he help her? He may have helped her. It would have taken more than one appeal, but he may have helped her achieve that end without her being a rapist. But she decided to use her position of power first. That was her go-to place. It was wrong. And I look forward to seeing our Jamie Fraser, who we think of as being someone who is honest to a fault almost. And to see him hold secrets and to fear losing Claire again and to see that vulnerability and to see him make mistakes and to be so utterly human, flesh and blood. That I'm looking forward to. I really hope this season is Sam Hewins to shine and to really show the layers and depth of Jamie Fraser. We've missed that in seasons 1 and 2. He's been written lighter and less layered than Claire in the writer's room. And I look forward to seeing him and seeing how hard it is for him to live without her, and that his life didn't recover really after her, and that he lost so much of himself when he didn't die at Culloden like he had planned to. It's going to be a great season, and I understand why it took them way longer than a year to put it out for us. And Ron Morris said in recent interviews that he's hoping that it has a fall preview every year. I don't know. The next book is even bigger. It's huge. When I'm looking at plotting out the read-along, as soon as season 3 ends, it could be an 11 to 12 month read-along. I'm plotting out the chapters right now. We're starting right after the season ends. Because if we don't, we're never fitting it in. So I hope that you'll come along with me on the read-along. And I plan on focusing on the history and all the different research details, just like I did with Voyager, and looking at the medicine and science too, because I love it so much. And I cannot wait to be doing the podcast after every episode. They will be up on Mondays to the best of my ability. The chats will continue on Wednesday nights on Twitter at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Please go and join the Facebook group, A Dram of Outlander. You have to ask to join. Go and like the big Facebook page. Instagram and Twitter are under Dram of Outlander. There's even a Tumblr account, A Dram of Outlander. Follow the website, adramofoutlander.com, and please, I want to hear your feedback. Call in, 719-425-9444, and you can support the podcast. I would, give you a call to action to share the podcast with other people. Post it on your social media. Tell friends about it who read the books or watch the show. You can go to patreon.com/adramofoutlander and do a small or large monthly offering to help support the podcast. I do all of it by myself. And I thank you so much for listening. Without you, there's no reason for me to do a podcast. And so I appreciate you deeply. I would ask that you go to iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play, any of the streaming sites that you listen through, and put in a review. Tell people why you like the podcast, why it's worth their hour to listen every week. I am looking forward to the 100th episode. I cannot believe we're here. It's amazing. And I thank you for turning out episode after episode and listening. Please leave comments, questions, remarks, because I want to hear from you. And if you ever want to come on the show and be a co-host, hey, let me know. You can even email contact@adramofOutlander.com. If you produce Outlander-inspired products and you want to do a giveaway to the audience, email me, call into the line, message me on the Facebook page privately. So the next episode will be for the season 3 premiere. And I am thrilled to death that we are finally here. It's been a long road. We did a Voyager read-along, Scottish Prisoner read-along, did a novella read-along, and now the Voyager overview prepping us for this season. Are there any things that you think that they will cut out, combine, or alter significantly from the books? Please, I gotta believe that Mary McNabb will be in that cave and that they won't give it to somebody else. Oh, and I would love to know your thoughts and ideas on how in the TV show that Jamie will marry Leary, knowing that she tried to kill Claire. I don't think it's enough for Claire or Jamie forgiving her in that the Old Fox's Lair episode. I don't think that's enough for Jamie to forgive, really, not with how much he misses Claire. All right. Until next time, slán je va.